During the 400 silent years, there were different religious sects that appeared. The Essenes existed in Palestine during the time of Christ. They stressed strict obedience to the law like the Pharisees, yet were repulsed by the corruption of the priesthood. They remained as a faithful remnant. They rejected the temple system, and they lived in the desert region of Qumran. The Qumran was near the Dead Sea. It was inhabited from about 130 BC to AD 70. The people here lived a monastic life. They shunned contact with the rest of the world. What they did of importance is that they copied the scrolls. In the excavations found in the mid-1950s, a room which was probably a scriptorium was found. It contained benches and inkwells where the scrolls would have been copied. When they believed it was time for them to leave the area, they hid the scrolls in jars and placed them in various caves. These scrolls in the caves were found in 1947, and they are called the Dead Sea Scrolls. These scrolls proved that the scriptures had remained virtually the same as when they were originally written. The differences were so insignificant that they did not change the meaning of the original manuscripts. These scrolls proved that the Bible we have now is the same as the earlier manuscripts. This was of great importance, as some scholars had come to believe the scriptures had been tainted since the original writings. The Essenes are not mentioned in the New Testament. Jesus would have known about them, but he said nothing. Another sect was the Pharisees. They interpreted the law, but unfortunately they also reinterpreted the law. Through the Pharisees came the oral law. The oral law added to the Mosaical law and caused many differing opinions among the religious Jews. This oral law is called the Mishnah. It actually developed over a long period of time, perhaps even from the time of Moses. Holman's Illustrated Bible Dictionary says, modern scholars see the Mishnah as a collection and editing of Jewish case law whose traditions may go back to about 150 BC, but primarily from the period of 50 BC to AD 220. The Pharisees were the largest and most important of the different sects. Paul was a Pharisee. They believed in the reality of angels and demons. They believed in the resurrection of which Jesus spoke. However, they opposed Jesus because he didn't accept their interpretations of the oral law. The Sadducees, another sect, had great political power and controlled the high priesthood. They believed the soul died with the body and that there was no resurrection. They rejected oral tradition and accepted only the written law, which they changed somewhat. They were from the wealthy and more influential high priest families. They did not believe in angels and demons. They were in charge of the temple and its services. They strongly opposed Jesus. This group formed when the Maccabees ruled Judah. Another group was the Herodians, who supported Herod Antipas, or any of the descendants of Herod the Great, as ruler over Palestine. This was strictly a political group. Another group was the Zealots. The only mention of a zealot in the Bible was Simon the Zealot. The Zealots were the extreme wing of the Pharisees. The Sanhedrin was not a sect. It was the ancient Jewish court system. It was the Jewish council made up of the Sadducees and the Pharisees, with the high priest presiding. It had 71 members. Holman says, according to Jewish tradition, the Sanhedrin began with the 70 elders appointed by Moses in Numbers 11:26 and was reorganized by Ezra after the exile. However, the Old Testament provides no evidence of a council that functioned like the Sanhedrin of later times. Thus, the Sanhedrin had its origin sometime during the centuries between the Testaments. A very interesting point to make is this. The Sanhedrin was abolished in about 425 CE. The Lamb and Lion ministries report now that the Sanhedrin was reconstituted on October 13, 2004, for the first time in 1600 years. Another group of people that we hear about, but is not mentioned in the Bible, were the Maccabees. The history of this group is written in the Apocrypha, which is included in the Catholic Bible. A priest who refused to obey the order of Antiochus to offer a sacrifice to Zeus was Mattathias. He and his 5 sons led the rebellion against Antiochus, which became known as the Maccabean Revolt. Mattathias the Maccabean was of the priestly line of Aaron. His son Judas Maccabeus and 4 brothers revolted against the Syrian king, captured Jerusalem, and cleansed the temple. The temple was rededicated in 165 BC. This day of dedication, or Feast of Dedication, is celebrated each year on the 25th day of the Hebrew month of Kislev, usually in December. Today it's known as Hanukkah. Also, the Maccabees, who were of the Asmonean family, began a line of high priests known as the Asmonean dynasty, or the Hasmonean dynasty. One of these priests signed a treaty with the Senate of Rome. Thus, Judea became a Roman province. The Roman general Pompey captured Jerusalem in 64 BC, and Israel was then under Roman authority. When Pompey took control of the temple, the power at that time was called the Roman Republic, but the Republic was dissolved in 27 BC, and Octavian became Caesar Augustus, first emperor of Rome. So the Roman Republic became the Roman Empire.